In Hollywood, there's a rule that almost never fails. If you reach the top, you don't just succeed, you become impossible to ignore. That's how the system works. But Debra Wilson doesn't follow that rule. She once stood at the peak of American television on MADtv, a performer so versatile she could become anyone at any moment and make audiences forget they were even watching her. For years, she wasn't just part of the show, she was one of the reasons people watched it. And then, something changed. There was no scandal, no public fallout, no moment people could point to and say, that's when it ended. She just stopped appearing the way people expected. And slowly, almost quietly, she disappeared from view. Which raises a question that doesn't have an obvious answer. How does someone at the top of their career simply fade out without anyone fully understanding why? Or maybe the better question is this: what if she didn't fade out at all? What if she just moved to a place most people never think to look? To understand that, you have to go back to where Debra Wilson first reached her peak, because her first peak didn't look like what Hollywood usually builds. She rose by doing the exact opposite. As an original cast member of MADtv, and its longest-serving one across 8 seasons, Debra Wilson became known not for who she was, but for how completely she could stop being herself. She could be Oprah. She could be Whitney Houston. She could become anyone within seconds, and not just at a surface level. Her Oprah Winfrey impressions became some of the most recognizable sketches on the show, often exaggerated into sharp, comedic parody, like the well-known segments that pushed the character into absurd territory. Oprah herself reportedly didn't enjoy those portrayals, something Wilson once addressed bluntly. Don't take yourself so seriously. At the same time, her Whitney Houston impressions, especially the parody of the Diane Sawyer interview in 2002, became equally iconic, but with a very different reaction. Whitney Houston reportedly embraced the performance, describing it as crazy and outrageous, in a way that acknowledged both its humor and its accuracy. And then there were the original characters: Bunifa, Latifah, Halifa, Sharifa Jackson, Melina, Stick Chick. Characters so specific, so fully realized, that they didn't feel like sketches. They felt like identities of their own. And that's where Debra Wilson became something rare. Not just a comedian, not just an impressionist, but a true chameleon. She didn't just play characters. She erased the space between herself and them. Audiences didn't watch Debra Wilson performing. They watched the characters, fully, completely, often forgetting there was a performer behind them at all. Critics and show analyses frequently credited her with creating some of the most memorable and defining characters in MADTV's run. And that's where the twist reveals itself. She reached the peak by removing herself from the spotlight. It sounds like an advantage, but it carries a deeper consequence. Because when your success is built on not being recognized as yourself, on constantly replacing your identity with someone else's, what happens when the stage that holds all those characters disappears? What exactly is left for people to remember? In 2003, that question became real for Debra Wilson. After 8 seasons as an original and longest-serving cast member of MADtv, she chose to leave. From the outside, it didn't look like a breaking point. There was no scandal, no public collapse, nothing that signaled an ending. But the reason behind that decision revealed something deeper about how the system worked. In an interview with the AV Club, Debra Wilson explained that she discovered a pay gap between herself and newer cast members, specifically white male performers who had joined after her. When she attempted to negotiate, she was told, "All the things you want to create and be on the show has a monetary value, and we don't value it as much as the new people coming in." She added directly, "People came in after me making more money than me." It wasn't loud, but it was decisive. Because the moment she stepped away, something shifted almost immediately. From the audience's perspective, she was suddenly gone, no longer appearing on screen, no longer part of the weekly rhythm that had made her familiar, no longer present in the same space where she had built her recognition. And over time, that absence turned into silence. Not a public downfall, but a quiet disappearance. The reality, however, wasn't about losing ability. It was about losing alignment with the system. Debra Wilson had built her career as a true chameleon, creating multiple recurring characters, shifting identities seamlessly, operating across a wide range of voices and personas. But Hollywood, especially in that era, favored something much simpler: clear images, repeatable roles, and easily marketable identities. And Debra didn't offer that. She wasn't one thing. She was many. And that made her harder to place within traditional casting structures. What looked like versatility became a limitation. It was the point where that talent no longer had a place inside the system that once elevated it. So when the structure that held everything together disappears, what kind of path is even left to take? For Debra Wilson, that question wasn't theoretical. It became immediate. Because after leaving MADtv, the transition wasn't gradual, it was abrupt. In a 2024 interview with Casting Networks, she described that period with unusual clarity. It completely imploded. No one was looking for me outside of MADtv. That one sentence captures the scale of the shift. Her live-action career didn't slowly decline. It collapsed. The momentum she had built over 8 seasons disappeared almost overnight. Outside of occasional guest appearances, there were no consistent opportunities, no steady roles, no system waiting for her on the other side. And with that came something even more immediate. No roles meant no income stability. She entered a period she later described as not working a lot, where financial uncertainty became a constant. The structure that once supported her, weekly television, recurring visibility, predictable work, was gone. And without it, she was forced to rethink everything, not as a career move, but as survival. The consequences quickly extended beyond her profession. She lost the home she had owned and lived in for nearly 12 years. At the same time, her marriage was falling apart.
Everything was a challenge. My marriage was falling apart. My home, I couldn't keep it.
This wasn't a single loss. It was layered, all shifting at once, and internally the impact was just as severe. She described feeling like a failure, not because of one specific event, but because everything she had built seemed to collapse at the same time. The identity she had relied on, the structure that defined her place in the industry, and the life that came with it, all of it was suddenly gone. This is the part of the story that often gets overlooked, because it's no longer about roles or recognition, it's about reconstruction. Debra Wilson has referred to that period as a kind of hard reset, a moment where nothing could be carried forward without being reconsidered. She had to let go of material stability, confront long-standing issues with self-esteem rooted in childhood, and move through what she described as a kind of emotional crucifixion before rebuilding. The changes weren't just professional, they were personal. She began redefining herself outside of the identity that MADtv had created. Tattoos, volunteer work, and eventually a deeper commitment to voice acting became part of that process, not as a strategy, but as a way to reconnect with something more stable than external validation. And that's where the real shift begins to emerge. Because this wasn't just a fall, and that's what makes the next question unavoidable. When the industry no longer has a place for you, when the life built around it falls apart, what do you build next? For Debra Wilson, the answer wasn't to rebuild what she had lost. It was to step into something entirely different. After the collapse of her live-action career, she didn't try to return to the same stage. No attempt to force her way back into sketch comedy. No push to reclaim visibility on traditional television. Instead, she moved into a space where visibility didn't matter at all. Voice acting, performance capture, a world without cameras, without spotlight, where the work exists, even if the performer doesn't. And that shift didn't come with guarantees. One of her earliest projects in this new phase was performance capture work on James Cameron's Avatar, 2009, where she served as a prototype model for the character Neytiri, ultimately performed on screen by Zoe Saldana. According to her own account, James Cameron later asked her to directly perform motion capture for the role. But what stands out isn't just the opportunity, it's the conditions she accepted to take it. In an interview with Casting Networks, she described that first step in striking terms. Nothing financial, no contracts, no union, I'm living the joy. And that detail matters, because this wasn't a calculated career pivot. It was a decision made at a point where stability no longer existed. But here's where the shift becomes clear. In this new space, she didn't have to change. The same qualities that had made her difficult to place on television, her range, her unpredictability, her refusal to stay within a single identity, were exactly what this environment required. Voice acting and performance capture don't reward consistency of image. They reward transformation, the ability to shift voices instantly, to create emotional depth without relying on physical appearance, to move between characters without being limited by a recognizable persona. And that's what Debra Wilson had been doing all along. On MADtv, it made her stand out. In Hollywood, it made her harder to categorize. Here, it made her essential. It was the beginning of a different kind of career, one built not on visibility, but on capability. So if this wasn't a return to the old peak, what kind of peak was she moving toward instead? This is where the story flips, because the second peak of Debra Wilson doesn't look like a peak at all, at least not in the way Hollywood usually defines it. There are no red carpets, no familiar face on screen, and yet, the work is everywhere. She begins appearing in some of the most influential projects in modern entertainment. In Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, 2019, and Jedi Survivor, she plays Sire Junda, a central figure, a former Jedi mentor navigating exile, trauma, and responsibility. The performance combines voice and motion capture, building a character defined as much by emotional restraint as by authority. In God of War Ragnarok, 2022, she takes on the role of Grilla, Angrboda's grandmother, delivered through both voice and physical likeness, blending mythological presence with grounded character work. In Destiny 2, the Witch Queen, she voices Savathun, arguably one of the most complex antagonists in the franchise. The performance is layered, controlled, and widely praised by players for how it balances manipulation, intelligence, and emotional weight. In Halo Infinite 2021, she becomes the Harbinger, another central antagonist, again defined not by visibility, but by vocal presence and controlled intensity. And in a completely different tone, from 2022 to 2025, she voices Daisy Duck in Mickey Mouse Funhouse, becoming the first Black actress to take on that iconic role within the Disney franchise. Across genres, science fiction, mythology, animation, the pattern holds: different characters, different audiences, same performer. But here's the defining difference. You don't see her, you experience her. And that absence changes how the work functions, because the focus shifts entirely to what is being created: voice, emotion, movement, rather than who is creating it. This is where her second peak takes shape, not through visibility, but through presence. And that's the twist. She returned to the top, just not in a way the audience was trained to notice. No headlines, no constant exposure, but a level of influence that reaches millions of players and viewers across franchises that define modern entertainment. A peak that exists, even when no one is looking directly at it. For Debra Wilson, success is no longer defined the way Hollywood traditionally frames it. She chose voice acting and performance capture not as a fallback, but as a space where the work itself comes first. In her own words, "It's not about my voice. It is never about my voice. My voice is always last. The story comes first. That single idea reframes everything. The goal is no longer to be recognized. It's to make the story work. And that also explains the way she approaches her career now. And maybe that's the question this story leaves behind. Does success have to be seen, or is it enough to be felt? Let us know your thoughts. And more importantly, what lesson do you take from this? Is it about adapting when the system no longer fits you? Or about redefining what the top really means? Because sometimes, the biggest careers aren't the loudest ones.